The thing I've done is I've created some artificial limits by investing in real estate, where it's a lot harder to go sideways. And leveled up and look at the holdco option around the real estate. It's kind of like an RRSP for grown-ups. That's kind of what your holdco is potentially. So of course, step number one, be incorporated. You have your operating company. Step number two, you open the holding company that's going to hold the assets. And the number one reason for that absolutely is liability. You're moving your assets out of the operating corporation, which what's getting named in that lawsuit is your operating company. The client dealt with your corporation. You were a representative of your corporation, but the client, if they were ever to sue you, they're filing a lawsuit against your corporation, and they're coming after the assets of the corporation. So you open a holdco, you move the assets over into the second corporation, and you loan them there. There's no tax consequences. It's just a loan from one corp to the other corp. And like I say, you move money over every month, and then ideally, you purchase some real estate inside that holdco. Why real estate? Well, for me, it's less liquid, which is a plus, right? You can't have a panicky moment where you decide to sell. It's long term. And there is no bubble in rents. When's the last time you heard that rents are about to collapse? I don't think I've ever heard that. You know, I've never, ever heard that. The only thing I hear about rent is it keeps going up, right? It keeps going up. And yes, lots of markets have rent caps, but we know how that works. For now, we know how that works. When that tenant leaves that property, then that property reverts back to the current market rents, which is why a lot of tenants try not to move. But life happens. Life happens. People pair bond, people split up, people take work in different spots. There's always churn around that. And you can be logical with vetting your tenants. You know, most of the tenants I've ever had, I've always looked for people who are actually going to become future clients. They wanted to buy, they had the credit, the income, the savings habits that they were on track, they were going to be buying. That's who I wanted as a tenant because there's a laundry list of reasons there, really, isn't there? And we understand it. I mean, this is our product. Okay, our product is mortgage financing, but let's face it, I mean, we're as immersed in real estate and all the math around real estate as anybody else could possibly be. We're at the epicenter of what is happening mathematically within the real estate world. Now, here's a little bit of a redemption story, so I'm not totally losing sleep over that TFSA experience. You know, it's just over there. Man, I was doing so good in there too. Every other little move I made, it just was on them. And anyway, what are you going to do? But luckily, over on the real estate side, the balance, the accounts are balancing out. The balance of accounts looks pretty good. In May of 2021, I purchased a pre-sale for $1.385. In May of 2022, that property appraised for 1.9. It was done. I moved into it. I'm living in it. And it's gone up to 1.9. I refinanced it due to the positioning of the market and a number of other factors. The lender would only go to 70%, but I pulled 1.33 out in mortgage money, leaving behind about $52,000 of equity in the property. So my next move, well, I got my original down payment back. What next, right? What am I going to do? I'm going to go turn this one into a rental, which, by the way, is cash flow neutral for now, and maybe it'll go underwater for a little bit. Maybe the rent will move up. Like, you know, I'm okay with it going underwater for a little bit because the valuation has since fallen to closer to 1.6. But will that come back again? I believe it will. Glass half full. I'm an optimist. And then I opened Holdco number 2. And I took that down payment money, loaned it from Holdco number 1 to Holdco number 2. Again, there's no tax consequences. I'm refinancing a property. I'm pulling the equity out for investment purposes. That's not income. That's not taxable income. Then I loaned it to the next Holdco, not income. That's a loan. It's a loan to one company and then a loan to the next company from the original company. And in September, I bought a house down the block, carbon copy of the first house, just around the corner, for $1.525. It appraised for $1.725 at the time I was buying it, but of course, we all know what the market's been doing. And, come May 2023, where will it be? Well, there's been 2 more sales across the street. One was around 162, the other is actually 165 afterwards. So, the market is somewhere around 165, I guess, at this point. And I will ultimately, in the spring, hopefully, see a little bit stronger, and hopefully I can get 80% LTV on this one, refi it, and pull some money out of it. And what will I do? Well, stay tuned. I think you can probably guess what I'm going to do. The other thing I've done within Holdco number 3 is I've started buying my Vanguard S&P 500 index units back that I was missing. And of course, timing-wise right now, seems like not a bad time. Started dollar cost averaging back in again around May of last year, and trying to pick up the pace and catch up. So overall, I think I've got about 63 units, so I've just about got I started this about 6 years ago, so I'm just about back to where I should have been. And we'll keep moving forward. What about Holdco number 4? So many Holdcos. Holdco number 4, that's the one buying the whole life insurance policies that has an IFA policy, an instant funding arrangement, where the money goes in and a line of credit is created and it comes right back out. And this looks like a pretty crazy doodle. It's a little bit of an eye chart to study, but here it is. Don't worry, you don't have to study that version. I'll zoom in a little bit for you. So the idea is you've got your income that flows into your operating company. It pays tax at 11%. You now have 89 dollars left over. Those 89 dollars flow into Holdco number 1. And Holdco number 1 purchases these whole life policies, which themselves have a 6% annual rate of return on. So there's a rate of return on that which is offset by a line of credit secured against those policies. Now, obviously, the line of credit interest rate is slightly above the rate of return at this point. A year ago, this looked a lot better than it looks today, but it's close to break even, more or less. So the money comes back out, it's back in your hands. You've got a multi-million-dollar life insurance policy that technically you paid for, but you've actually got access to the capital you paid for it with. So you got the life insurance piece and you got the money back, and now I'm taking the money, investing it in the piece of real estate. So rather than going straight to the real estate investment, I'm cycling it through the whole life policy, building up a massive life insurance amount, and in turn, building up a line of credit that is offset by the cash value of those policies. And then, as I say, Holdco number 2 buys the piece of real estate. We refinance that piece of real estate as the market goes up. 80% of the capital that comes out of that IFA policy I'm assigning to real estate. 20% of it moving forward I'm going to assign to the equities market and to the stock market. And then, as I say, there's the whole rental income, there's potential refinance dollars, there's dividends that are being paid, there's appreciation on the equity, and that money flows back into the Holdco and goes back up again, and the circle repeats. Now that's a pretty tricky scenario. I just explained something to you in about 4 minutes that the average professional financial advisor will take an hour to walk through, and I just wanted to sketch it out. And again, I'm not telling you what to do, I'm just sharing with you a little bit what I'm doing. I am not a CFP, I am not a CA, but I can refer great ones to you who've helped me structure these things. And again, if you need an intro to a quality accountant who works with incorporated brokers in particular, in BC or in Ontario, I got you. In between and outside, I'm stuck. But I have 2 great individuals who are working on a regular basis with dozens, at this point, maybe hundreds of incorporated brokers. And I have a great financial planner as well who's helped me set up what is a pretty complicated arrangement, but he can explain it very, very clearly. And on top of that, if you are in the category of, doing enough business, having enough success in life that you've got some leftover money and you want to go a little bit deeper, again, you're established, you're incorporated, you have leftover money, then you're going to be interested in the link that's going to get dropped in the chat. There's going to be a private event that Jay Gangnis, a fellow I've interviewed on the podcast a couple times over the years, is going to host, and he'll walk through some of these different strategies and different plans with you. So I wouldn't say if it's year 1 in the business and you funded 3 mortgages and you're thinking about incorporating in a year or 2, that this is an event for you. It's a lot sort of higher level stuff. But if, as they say, you're at that point where you're trying to figure out what to do with the leftover money, which, you know, takes a lot of us 10 years plus to get to that point in this business, this event would be an event for you to jump into.